and New York cars that they know.
Okay, so I want to introduce to you guys
Here we go.
one of the most humble and welcoming people. Don't keep talking, keep talking.
Anyway, I'm gonna move my hands like this, and I'm gonna talk to you, and I'm gonna pretend that I'm telling you a really engaging story.
Even if you try to slip. Who's there? Connecting rod.
That's good. The first true Mark I friend I met, I knew Mark I people when I first got into Volkswagens, but when I first bought the sport truck and had my own Mark I, Evan was the first person I met up with. Evan was the first person to take me out to a show. We cruised out to Cult Classic together. His truck looked wildly different back then. Yeah, this is Evan.
Hey,
What do you got? Tell us about it.
This is a 1981 Volkswagen Rabbit pickup. It started life in, Texas, Florida, California, Kansas, and then it ended up in New York with me, and now it's down here in Georgia. So it's been all over. It was summer 2011, and I had just missed Mark I Madness. I literally bought it like the week of Madness and drove it back home. And then 2012 was my first time going to Madness with it, back when it was gray. So yeah.
2012 was when we met. That's the year I bought the truck. A
Yeah.
month after I got it is when we linked up through
Classic.
the forums,
Yeah.
through Vortex, linked up, hey, who's going to Cult Classic
Yeah.
that lives in New York?
And I was like, oh, it's someone in the Hudson Valley with a Mark I.
Evan unfortunately moved down to Georgia, still rocking the New York plate.
Yeah, I have to update that. Kind of fun because down here it makes everybody think you really drove a long distance to get to the show. Had a 1.6 TD from a 90 Jetta, so just before they did the TDI. So it's 1.6 turbo diesel from a 90 Jetta, and that was in there beforehand. Basically all I've done is like a lot of cosmetic type stuff. The interior has been kind of changed up.
But now it has a TDI.
Nope.
Oh, it's still the 1.6 turbo diesel.
It's the same 1.6 turbo diesel from when I got it in 2011. It's the same.
Why did
engine
I
the whole
feel like
time.
it had a TDI in it?
I've thought about, and I've talked to everybody under the sun about,
That might be
should
why.
I do, like, it's like a hairstyle. I'm always like, oh, what engine should I put in it? And I've never put another engine in it. So
And this was your delivery truck for the cookie shop for a little while,
for
right?
a while I did a baking business.
New Paltz is about 2 hours north of New York City, an hour and a half.
And I used to drive to the city and deliver cookies. Manhattan and Brooklyn, all around, yeah. I did a lot of stuff with this. It's so funny, I forgot about that.
Yeah, I didn't. That was like always the funniest thing is because you drove the shit out of this truck.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, cool. I bought mine to drive too. What's the big deal? Not that you ever bragged about it, but people are like, once in a while, people are like, yeah, Evan delivers cookies out of it. That's insane. I'm like, I guess you guys don't drive your Mark I's? Like,
You know, it's funny
Didn't
now
we
that
buy
you-
these to drive them?
Now you say that, it's like, oh yeah, I never thought about it until you said it, but I guess it was a work truck,
Yeah.
legitimately. But yeah, I used to deliver, and I'd double park in places all the time and run inside and make deliveries. Tom Clark is the person like wholly responsible for helping me get this to where it is now. He did the orange wrap in 2015. It's showing its age now. He helped me wrap up the airbag
I mean,
installation.
it's you know how it's showing its age, but when I look at this, and even after you tell me that, it would probably take me a few minutes of looking it over to start to pick out what's starting to fail. But
Yeah, from 10 feet, it looks fun. And it's,
no, this
then when
is
you get
like
close-
a 1.5 footer.
oh, okay.
Yeah, come on, give yourself a little more credit. It's not
All
10,
right.
like 1.5.
I'll take it, I
Maybe
guess.
2 feet. Anytime you ask Evan to pop the feet, he goes, oh, it's filthy under there. I don't want to show it off. But like, it's kind of the beauty of it. Yeah, it looks exactly the same as the last time I looked at it.
Yeah. It's the color it was when I bought it in 2011. And you can see the nice lines that Tom Sinisbuilt did when he did the wrap.
So it's a wrap. Those who haven't picked up by now, this is a full wrap truck. Done, 6-7 years ago at this point. Wow, time
2015.
flies, man. It's a good, it's a
fun.
good color.
It's a fun color for sure. And the beauty is, I liked it because I was like, oh, if anything ever changes, we can just peel it off. Gray again or do a different color. There's the factory color. It was originally silver. This gray, I was told, was some early 2000s Porsche seal gray.
What's your philosophy on why this looks the way it does under the hood?
It was the kind of car that I used like all the time. Basically the byproduct of we're using it and it might look fun on the outside, but under the hood it's all business. And I never got interested in like, what is it? Tucking everything in the bay and all of that.
Wire tidy on the Silver Rabbit I just got.
Oh yeah.
And all the connectors are stretched out. The wires are kinked wrong. And like it looks good, but it causes havoc when you try to work on it.
And when I lived in New York, I drove it down here to Helen for what was then SOO, I think 4 summers in a row. When SOA moved to Savannah, I drove it down there. So it made a bunch of New York to Georgia trips. Madness, New York to Pennsylvania trips. Cool. And I drove it back from California when I bought it. And the crazy story with that, which is really sad, drove it 2,000 of the 2,500 miles, hit a deer on my last day, completely wrecked the square front end, and ended up just getting this because it was the easiest thing.
Like, is there anything big next for it? I mean, it's at this point, it's kind of safe to say you're gonna keep it as long as you can.
I'm gonna keep it as long as I can. It's a lot of fun. It's very utilitarian. You know, it's great for running to Home Depot and Lowe's. The 1.6 turbo diesel is still kicking, and it probably will for a while, but if it goes, you know, perhaps then I'll pursue some different
It's
engine.
cool to see that. I don't know why. I guess just because when the first few times I saw under the hood of this, I still wasn't super familiar with the swaps, but really just didn't know what I was looking at. This whole time I thought it was like a 1.9 swap.
No, I thought about it. I almost pulled the trigger a couple of times.
No,
but
you have the best mentality on it. People all the time are so eager to swap stuff. What's your favorite and least favorite part about it?
The favorite's probably all of the cool adventures I've been on with it. Least favorite thing is having a turbo that's 900 degrees, 2 feet away from your knees, having that turbo along for every long ride. Like, my plan is, if this engine goes, I want to replace it with something that's non-turbo, hopefully something where I can manage to have air conditioning.
You know what my favorite engine?
The ABA?
No.
Oh, not anymore?
They call it the 1Y.
It's the 1.9 diesel.
It's probably about the same power, but it's no turbo, and you still get 40-ish miles to the gallon.
That's interesting.
But we never got them in the States.
Yep. The other thought was getting away from diesel, actually. The only reason, I'm just kind of tired of the stink. And the garage in our house is under the house. So when you start up the car to pull it out, you have to leave the garage doors open for a half hour to have it look right? There you go.
I remember when you did the air, and like you even asked me for my opinion.
And you were like, don't do it.
Most people do it for the wrong reasons. And I still said, don't, if you want my opinion, if it's my truck, but the way you drive it, the amount that you drive it, air ride makes total sense for you.
I did it for the nerdiest reason. I was like, well, I want to go to a show and dump it out, but I also want to go to Lowe's and put 700 pounds in the bed and have it sit and not scrape and all that bullshit. So yeah, it's like the nerdiest reason. It's like, oh, I need it to be practical. Ideally, I want to go to an airlift guy and have him go through it, because it's been like 6 years, because sometimes it throws an error code. I would like someone who knows what they're doing to go through it. But otherwise, it's been pretty darn good, you know?
Do you know how many miles are on it, and do you know how many miles you've put on it?
Yes.
Half the time these clusters don't work, so.
The cluster works. I believe it currently has 187 on it, and when I bought it, it had 139 on it. And I only know because the other day I was like, how many miles did I put on this? And I was in New York 2 weeks ago, and I looked it up, and I found my old receipt for buying it when I was in California, and the guy hand wrote it. Like, we sat in the car, and he hand wrote a little bill of sale, and I think it was like 139. So I've put
That's awesome. Yeah, you put a good
lot
amount of miles
on it.
And you know what? Honestly, not to downplay it, but like I would have expected you to say more than that.
Yeah.
But like at the same time, it's not your daily. It's
No.
been your work truck, but you've had another. Have you always had another car to drive
yeah.
as your main, like
Yeah,
a
this-
daily?
This was only daily for periods. You know, like, I just remembered something. I lived in Brooklyn from 2014 to 2020. For those 6 years, it stayed in my old house's garage in New Paltz. So I really put like maybe 500 miles a year on it in those years, because it was such a hassle to be like, oh, I'm gonna go upstate New York, get the car,
the truck,
bring
come
it to
back down.
Brooklyn, and then go to Cult Classic or Madness that weekend. So, and then at the end of the weekend, you brought it back and you were like, I don't want to park this in the city too long. So there were some days I went from like Pennsylvania to New York City and then up to upstate New York, dumped it and came, you know, it was just like, for a little while when car number one had an issue, I drive this, you know.
Right,
But,
right. It
yeah,
wasn't
so
like
what's
your
that,
own.
like
Yeah, it wasn't your only car
it's 48,000 miles in a decade. And
on
since
a
half-
40-year-old vehicle. But when we own these cars and trucks, we tend to kind of have a second car because we
Yeah.
know as much as we enjoy them, you kind of always want to have a backup.
It's been a lot of fun. I'm really thankful for the people along the way that have helped me to like fix this thing up and maintain it. And I plan on hanging on to it as long as I can.